Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where you give us the sources, the notes, the research.
That we dig in.
Exactly. We unpack it all to pull out the really crucial stuff, the need-to-know insights so you can get up to speed fast.
Get you properly informed.
Right. And today we are plunging into the SEI blockchain. You've handed us a really interesting source document here. It's a big overview of SEI from back in August 2023.
That's our map for today. And just to be clear, we're sticking only to this document.
Yep. Using just this to figure out what SEI is, how it's trying to fix things in digital asset exchange.
What its tech is about, and the role of its token, SEI, well, as it was described then.
Okay, a layer one built just for exchange. That sounds different. I'm curious. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So starting right at the top, the source says SEI is a layer one blockchain. Simple enough. But it immediately points to its main goal, doesn't it?
It really does. The core idea hammered home in this material is that SEI is optimized for exchanging digital assets.
Optimized for exchange. Even though it says it's open source, general purpose, that focus is key.
That's presented as its defining thing. Yeah.
And why? Why focus just on exchange? What's the problem the source claims SEI is tackling?
Well, their argument here is that, existing blockchains have issues. Big ones, especially with scaling and just the user experience.
Holding back Web3 adoption, basically.
That's the claim. And exchanging assets, buying, selling, trading, that happens everywhere, right? Gaming, social stuff, NFTs, DeFi, it's fundamental.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's a common denominator.
So by building specifically for that, the source suggests SEI aims to clear that bottleneck, enable better apps.
Got it. Tackling a universal problem. So every chain needs fuel, right? It's token. The source talks about the SEI token. What does this document say it's used for?
Right, SEI. It's the native utility token. And this source lists quite a few functions. First off, paying network transaction fees. Pretty standard.
Okay, gas fees, essentially. Covers activity. What about keeping the network safe?
Yeah.
Security.
Yep. Major role there. Staking. SEI is used for DPoS validator staking.
Delegated proof of stake.
Exactly. So you can either stake SEI to run your own validator node, or you can delegate your tokens to someone else who's running one. Helps secure the chain.
Okay, staking for security. Makes sense. And deciding where the chain goes in the future.
Governance, yeah. The source says SEI holders get to participate in future protocol governance. Gives them a voice.
And it sounds like it gets used inside the apps built on SEI, too. Not just for the network itself.
That's right. The source mentions it can be used as native asset liquidity, or even as collateral within applications built on SEI.
Interesting. That leads to another detail here. Something about prioritizing transactions. Fee markets.
Oh, yeah, the fee markets. It's basically an option for users. You can pay an extra tip to the validators.
To get your transaction potentially processed faster.
That's the idea. Prioritized. And the interesting bit the source notes is that validators can choose to share some of those tips with the people who delegated SEI to them.
Well, that's neat. Kind of aligns incentives, rewards the delegators for network use.
And one more thing, trading fees?
Right.
The source says you can use SEI to pay trading fees on exchanges that are actually built on the SEI blockchain.
Okay, so it's really woven into the whole economy of the chain.
Definitely.
So let's recap the token uses from the source. Network fees, staking for security, governance, in-app liquidity and collateral, priority tips, and trading fees. That's pretty comprehensive.
It covers a lot of ground, according to this document.
Now, you said SEI aims to solve the exchange problem. Let's get technical. How does the source say it actually pulls this off? What's this twin turbo consensus? Sounds fast.
It does sound fast. And yeah, this is where the source makes some of its biggest claims. Twin turbo consensus is how SEI gets its speed. The headline number is 400 milliseconds, time to finality.
400 milliseconds. Whoa. That is incredibly fast. How does the source put that in context compared to others?
It makes a very bold comparison. Claims it's 10 times faster than Solana and other high-performance chains. That's according to the source's info, of course.
Wow, okay. 10x Solana's finality?
Yeah.
If that holds up, that's huge. And there's this related idea, single slot finality.
Yeah, they're connected. The source explains that means validators need consensus, like 2/3 agreement before a block even gets added.
Before it's even on the chain.
Right, which prevents things like reorgs or forks. The source says this makes the user experience smoother, more predictable, and gives faster response times because once a transaction is in, it's final, quickly and reliably.
Okay, so speed, but also certainty, addresses that UX point. How does it actually move the blocks around so fast? The source talks about intelligent block propagation.
Right, so instead of sending the whole block proposal out immediately,
Which should be big.
exactly, SEI apparently sends a compressed version first, just the transaction digests like a summary. This lets validators start building the block locally using that small piece of info. The source claims this gives a 40% performance boost and helps with those faster user response times.
Like sending the shipping manifest ahead of the full container. Clever. And then optimistic block processing. Sounds related.
It built on it. The idea here, according to the source, is that SEI starts processing blocks basically as soon as they arrive. It doesn't wait for the whole consensus thing to finish first.
Oh, interesting. So it's processing while consensus is happening.
Sort of in parallel, yeah. And this is claimed to give another 33% performance improvement. Again, faster response times for the user.
Okay, so multiple layers of optimization just for speed. But exchanges need throughput too, right? Handling lots of orders. Old chains often do things one by one.
Yeah, sequential processing. It's a bottleneck.
Yeah.
And the source says SEI's answer is parallelization.
Parallelization. Makes sense.
It figures out which transactions don't depend on each other. Like if you're trading SOL USDC and I'm trading ETH BTC.
Those are totally separate.
Exactly. So SEI can process them at the same time, not one after the other.
Okay. Running independent tasks side by side. Does the source give a number for this?
It does, a big one. Claims SEI achieves 20,000 orders per second using this parallelization.
20,000 OPS.
Yeah.
That's exchange level throughput.
Yeah.
And it mentions lower transaction costs too.
Yeah, because you can fit more into blocks efficiently. That's the stated user benefit.
Okay. Shifting gears slightly, exchanges have problems like front running. Does the source mention how SEI deals with that? Front-running prevention.
It does. Front-running, that's a type of negative MEV, right? Where someone sees your transaction coming and jumps ahead to profit off it.
Yeah, really frustrating for users.
So the source says projects building on SEI can use a native matching engine that SEI provides. It's presented as a tool to help stop that kind of stuff.
A built-in tool for fairness.
Okay.
And native price oracles, what's that about?
Right, so the validators themselves, the ones securing the network, they're tasked with providing price feeds for popular assets directly onto the chain. Trustless, decentralized price data.
So reliable price info baked right in.
Exactly. The benefit stated is a more reliable trading experience since the price data is coming securely from the network itself. Makes sense for an exchange-focused chain.
Definitely. And can anyone build on this? Is it open?
Yep. The source confirms it's a permissionless blockchain. Developers can deploy smart contracts, and it specifically mentions support for Rust.
Rust contracts. Okay. So we've got a good handle from the source on what SEI is, its tech aimed at exchange optimization. What about the tokenomics and project status back then, August 2023?
Okay, token details from the source, dated August 1st, 2023. Total and maximum supply, 10 billion SEI. Fixed.
10 billion. And how much was circulating when it first listed?
The source says 1.8 billion SEI initially, so 18% of the total.
Wait, 18%. And how was that 10 billion total supply divided up, according to this document?
Right. The allocation breakdown listed is private sale investors got 20%, Binance Launch Pool 3%, the team got 20%, the foundation 9%.
And the rest. There's a big chunk left.
Yeah, the ecosystem reserve, that's 48%. The source does note that some of that reserve vests way out beyond August 2030.
Almost half of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do they fund the project initially? Did the source mention that?
It did. Said they raised $35 million through equity investments, 3 rounds, and those investors were allocated 2 billion SEI tokens in total.
Got it. And looking at the roadmap from that time, July, August 2023, what had they done and what was coming up next, according to the source?
Okay, completed stuff listed includes Testnet 1 launch back in 2022, then various testnet campaigns, Dawn, Dusk, Sunken Treasure, running into mid-2023, and Testnet 2 launched early 2023.
So lots of testing. What was the next big step planned from Q3 2023 onwards?
The big one for Q3 2023 was the mainnet launch. That was listed as the key event.
The main event, yeah.
And then looking further out, Q4 2023, H1 2024. The source mentions planned features like state optimizations, making optimistic parallelization even better, MEV auctions, ZK-like clients.
Future tech upgrades.
Right. But it explicitly says these future things depend on network governance. They weren't set in stone.
Understood. Any big partnerships or ecosystem growth mentioned in the source around that time?
Yeah, a few highlights. SushiSwap planning to launch perpetuals on SEI, noted as their first time on a non-EVM chain.
Oh, interesting. Sushi going cross-chain.
and Tatami joining as a Web3 gaming publisher, plus it detailed hackathons the SEI Foundation ran or sponsored. Bay Area Topio mentioned partners like SoftBank, Keio University, Sony, and prize pools over $200.
Okay, sounds like they were actively trying to attract developers and projects. Did the source give any sense of how busy the testnet was leading up to mainnet? Any metrics?
It did from July 2023. Mentioned over 28,000 Say.js packages, over 400 million total transactions processed on testnet.
400 million. Wow.
Yeah, over 7.5 million wallets created, and a peak of like 984,000 daily active users during testnet.
Nearly 1 million daily users on testnet.
Okay.
And community size. Socials.
As of August 1st, 2023, the source reported over 519,000 Twitter followers and over 676,000 members on Discord.
Those are pretty significant numbers. Definitely shows a lot of interest around the time this source was written, leading into that mainnet launch window.
For sure. Paints a picture of momentum.
So let's try and tie this all together. Based purely on this source material from August 2023, what's the core takeaway? Why did this source present Say as important?
I think what really jumps out from this document is the laser focus. It presents Say as a blockchain built for one primary job, making the foundation for digital asset exchange way, way better.
Right.
The argument woven through the source is that all these tech pieces we discussed, Twin Turbo, parallelization, the native oracles, the matching engine, they're all tools specifically chosen to attack those big problems the source identified. Scalability and bad user experience on other chains, especially for trading.
And because exchange is so fundamental, fixing that could unlock a lot, is the implication.
That's the core message, yeah. Making exchange faster, more efficient, maybe cheaper, more reliable, which the source sees as critical across Web3.
And the SEI token fits right into that picture. Powering it, securing it, governing it, being used within it.
Exactly. The token's utility, as described here, seems tightly integrated with that core mission. And then the tokenomics, the roadmap, the partnerships, they all illustrate the strategy, again, based on this source, for getting the token out there and building the ecosystem that uses this specialized layer.
It really is a snapshot of a project aiming squarely at one big target.
A very focused approach, as described in August 2023.
Well, this has definitely been a deep dive into Say, strictly following the lines of the source you gave us. We've hit on its purpose, the SEI token's role, the tech aiming for speed and efficiency in exchange, and its status back in August 23.
And maybe just one final thought to chew on, based on everything the source laid out. Given that intense focus on asset exchange and those performance numbers claimed that fast finality, the high throughput, how could that kind of optimized foundation change things beyond just standard crypto exchanges? Think about like in-game economies or social platforms with tipping or digital collectibles or dynamic NFTs that change based on interactions.
Anything where assets move around fast and often.
Exactly. If the underlying layer makes that super smooth, cheap, and reliable, as this source suggests Say aims to do, what new kinds of applications or user experiences does that enable? How might those things look different built on a base like this?
That's a great question. What becomes possible when that specific friction point is removed or drastically reduced?
Yeah.
Definitely something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for bringing this source to us. It's been fascinating to unpack, Say, through this particular lens. We really hope this deep dive gave you a solid, quick understanding based on your document.
Keep digging, keep learning.
And keep sending us your sources. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.